Order Mad as Hell on iTunes, available now.
Governor Rick Scott of Florida has not gotten the memo from national Republicans that Obamacare is no longer a huge winning issue for them. And so he is going to try to use Obamacare to get back into the lead in his upcoming race for the governor's seat in Florida. And to do that, he's organized a panel of 20 senior citizens who he's going to talk to try to get their horror stories about Obamacare. And so he said to them, as I travel the state and I listen to seniors, they tell me stories about how their plans are being changed, how they are losing their doctors, the coverage is changing, and so what I'm here to do is just hear your stories. And unfortunately, he heard some stories, but he didn't like the stories. First of all, this is from Harvey Eisen, a 92-year-old West Boca resident, said, I'm completely satisfied. I can't expect that me as a senior citizen are going to get preferential treatment when other programs are also being cut. Ruth Lynn Robin of Boca Raton says, people who are too young for Medicare need the health coverage they get from Obamacare. If young people don't have insurance, everyone else ends up paying for their care when they get sick or injured and end up in the hospital. She goes on to say, and I love this comment from her, people were appalled at Social Security, referring to when it first was instituted. They were appalled at Medicare when it came out. I think these major changes take some people aback. But I think we have to be careful not to just rely on the fact that we're seniors and have an entitlement to certain things. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I want you to be selfish. Tell me your selfish bullshit. And she's like, sorry, I'm awesome.
What Rick Scott failed to understand is old people have seen all this shit happen, and politicians are the same over and over and over again. She said, well, I remember when this went down, and I remember when that went down, and I was afraid of it then, and we were worried about it. So when I was, however old she was at the time, we were scared, but then we're like, oh, we got used to this. This is all kind of crazy. And also, they have families, they have kids, they have grandkids, and they're like, well, I'd like my child and his grandson and my grandson, his kid, to be okay. Mm-hmm. They care about other people. He miscalculated.
Loving people.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
Yeah, I love these examples, and I think that as more and more elements of the Affordable Care Act become enacted, more and more people are going to realize that it does more for them and their health and increasing their longevity. It's such an important law. I mean, look, I am not a fan of the federal mandate, but I totally understand why the federal mandate is put in place. I don't like that there aren't cost controls there. I don't like that insurance companies can charge you whatever the hell they want, but the fact that people can now be insured when they have a pre-existing condition. I mean, since we're using some anecdotal evidence, I'll add on to it. My mom has kidney disease, and she was in a really, really bad place because she knew that she didn't have the ability to change insurance. She was stuck with one insurance company. If she dropped that because they weren't treating her properly, her doctors were terrible, she couldn't switch to another insurance because she has a pre-existing condition. That no longer exists. She can go ahead and switch insurance companies based on, information and experiences and all of that. And another thing that I wanted to comment on is, Ruth touching on Social Security was so important. Look, Social Security is under attack by Republicans constantly, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to make sure that we don't mess with Social Security. Because, to give you an example, all right, you want to save for retirement, so you go to a bank, you go to Chase or something, you open up an IRA account. Do you know how much your money grows in an IRA?
A lot?
No, not at all.
Damn.
I mean, I started worrying about retirement. I'm like, all right, I'm probably not going to get Social Security by the time I'm ready to retire. So let me go ahead and start saving for retirement. I put some money in an IRA. I've lost money over the last year, a lot of money. I'm like, what the hell? How is this supposed to grow? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, I've often felt that saving money is sort of a scam. That's why I've made sure that I never have any excess money.
Perfect.
And while your savings don't grow very fast, I've found that debt grows as fast as you want it to.
Very fast.
And this is us in a privileged position to even think about putting money in an IRA and expecting it to grow. When there's this thought that old people have money, and people say, oh well, you don't want to always have to borrow from your parents, and if you fall upon hard times, you borrow from your parents, and then your parents borrow from their parents. Who says everybody older has money? If anything, we've had all this time to spend all of our money and use it on useless things our whole lives. So by the time you're 92, what do you have? And then it's getting worse. Yeah. So in a position of basically, I think, privilege outside of a large majority of the country that isn't able to do stuff like that, you're losing.
Yeah,
you know?
Consider this. If you have no Social Security, your retirement is constantly a risk. It's always going to be based on the market, the stock market. And we know that there's a lot of manipulation going on. And we know, especially when you look at how these retirement accounts work within certain banks, there are fees and there are fines and there are penalties and there are certain ways that the banks make money off of you trying to save for retirement, and you actually don't become a millionaire by the time you're ready to retire. That is a false statement. It's a scam, and it's absolutely disgusting to know that we have a political party that wants to do away with the system that we paid into.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I love that he's sort of trying to get them to resort to sort of baser, more selfish instincts. She goes on to say, we don't have this graphic, but she says, this is Ruth Lynn, I think we have to spread it around, talking about Medicare and health insurance. This is the United States of America. It's not the United States of senior citizens. And I love that. And look, I don't think that all senior citizens are going to be as filled with compassion and empathy as Ruth Lynn Rubin, but I do think that if for no other reason, like they understand how valuable Medicare is. And when Rick Scott comes and says, oh, Obama's trying to cut your Medicare, which is conceivably true in the future and we'll be watching for it. But no, Obama actually stepped in and stopped cuts that were going to happen to Medicare under Obamacare. And it's Republican governors in many states who are refusing to expand Medicare access in their own states. Like, it's so see-through. Yeah. And the more important point, this is just to tell you a little bit more about Rick Scott that we like to say from time to time on this show. He's talking about people sort of harming this sacred institution of Medicare. Well, when he was the CEO of Columbia HCA, he was found guilty of inflating Medicare bills and was fined $1.7 billion. Okay, if you cared so much about Medicare, how about you didn't defraud it when you were the CEO of that company?
And you know what that shows? It shows that he's not, people will think, oh, this guy he's ill-informed, he's an idiot, he's just trying to do this. They know exactly how this works. So these governors who are rejecting Medicare or rejecting that part of Obamacare in their state, it's not because they're like, oh, Obamacare is going to ruin my state. They know it's going to ruin the things for their constituents so that constituents can think it's the problem with Obamacare. Yeah. It's not like they're stupid. There's no way he's missing the point. And when he's going on this tour of talking to seniors, he's not surprised by it. He's like, oh, well, they're seeing through me. Damn.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, in recent polls anyway, he is running against Charlie Crist, the former governor of Florida. And the most recent poll that we have access to is from Quinnipiac University. Charlie Crist is leading 48% to 38%. And so you can see how successful these fear-mongering tactics have been for Rick Scott. And so good luck with